Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn presentation on the topic of service desk metrics and how healthy is your IT environment. Before we get started, we will wait a few minutes for everyone else to join. We'll just wait maybe one more minute give people time to join, as I know it takes some time to get this tool installed and everything working. Okay, we're 1 minute after, and I think we can go ahead and start now. So before we really get into the meat of things, I did want to kind of prerequisite this presentation. I will be talking and using ITIL-based terms. I will be, these reports and these types of metrics can be applied to really any type of system, not necessarily ITIL-based ITSM, which is IT Service Management. So when I do use some terms, I will try to explain them so that they're easily understandable. Okay, let's get started. So today's meeting, we're going to talk about some of the top metrics that are found to be useful in a service desk. A lot of them are, pretty simple, straightforward, that have been used for many, many years, and there are some other ones in here that we're starting to recommend in order to measure the success and the healthy of an IT department. So we'll start with, obviously, the tickets. New tickets is a good topic. One thing a lot of companies don't typically like to track or track at all are the types of submission methods. We'll go a little bit into that. We'll talk about incidents resolved and task close, and those are terms used in an ITSM, and I'll explain those when we get there. And then we'll talk a little bit about ticket duration. How long are tickets open? How is that affecting your department or your company? We'll talk about another type of report that identifies recurring issues or tickets being reopened and resolution times. We'll also go over first call resolution and how important it is to understand what percentage of your calls are being resolved at the first of contact. Then we'll go a little bit into individual performance, and obviously these next two topics, 8 and 9, are kind of linked together. But how healthy is your environment report, and how you can use that same report to understand your backlog and the health of your service desk. And then last but not least, the one people don't typically like to talk about are satisfactions and how important they are. And so let's get started. All right, so give us a second for the slides to change. All right, new tickets. Obviously, new tickets shows you the volume of the incidents, problem change that are coming in. And bear in mind, incidents is an ITSM term used for problems. Something is broken. So you'll want to track that differently than service requests, which are typically task and change and problem. They're all differently and should be tracked independently. And the goal is to determine how many tickets your team or departments or the service desk in general can handle in a period of time. And monitoring that and understanding the change and how changes in the environment can cause this to go up and down. And it helps staff and leadership plan for staffing. Do we need more people? Is the volume coming in at a higher rate that we need to staff more? It helps you forecast the future. If you start tracking your tickets over time, things happen over a year's period of time that can somewhat forecast changes in events And as you know, it's very important to track these, weekly, monthly, yearly, to understand trending. And I'll show you. I have examples for each topic. And again, bear in mind, every company is different. These are just examples and by no means indicate one company over the other. And kind of going over these graphs, I did run these reports on the beginning of May, so you'll see a drop-off on these. So you can just ignore May. But in this particular report, you'll see we're tracking new tickets by priority. And what you're looking for is, every company is different, but in this case, the higher volumes, obviously, what's called planning, which is entry level. Not a lot of priority or visibility gets put on these password resets, things like that. But what you're wanting to look at is the change between months or periods of time, and why one jumps up. For example, low jumped from 100 to thousands between February and March. Those are examples that, why did something happen? And this will create the visibility for the IT leadership to go ask the questions and drill down into the reasons why particular things have taken place. And then, of course, obviously criticals, they're very important. Obviously, those are should be if the lower number of volumes coming through your department. If they're the higher volumes, then you've got a problem that needs to be. Moving to the next slide. So again, when you're tracking the tickets, what is the percentage of change over time? In this case, it's just months, but you might want to show it over weeks. You could show it over years, and this allows you to ask the questions: what has changed? Why has this changed? If you have something happen in the environment, like the implementation of a new piece of software, obviously you're going to probably see an increase in change between the time it was not implemented and the time it was implemented. And you can document that for historical reports or historical reasons. Another type of report it's common in a lot of the systems that people don't look at, and I feel is a very important report because you can increase efficiencies and understand where you can make change to your environment that would save the company money or increase the quality of service to the customer. But it's really important for every company to understand how are your tickets getting submitted, whether they're walk-ups, whether they're a telephone call, whether it's instant message, email. There's so many ways these ways, and it's very important that if the ones creating the tickets are tracking the type of method so that you can monitor this and understand your environment. Maybe some environments like to call, maybe some environments like to email. Well, once you look at your report and you can track it over time, you can step back and look and make decisions on which one do we want to promote. Here's an example of a particular customer. Again, ignore May, but and I'm not sure how visible it is, but the green line is telephones. This particular customer is mostly inbounds. Well, they also have email, they have walk-ups, and they have the self-service portal. Obviously, through the understanding of the cost of time and telephones, you might want to drive your self-service portal through marketing. And any efforts that you do to market or push any particular submission method, if you'll want to track that change, and this report can do that for you. And it's so I always recommend understanding your types of submission methods and getting them documented and reported on so that you can monitor them. All right, another good report is incidents resolved and tasks closed. For those ITIL users or ITSM users, this makes sense. Incidents resolved is a break-fix thing. My password reset, and it was resolved. However, you also need to track service request, problems, change. A lot of these other areas of tickets are tracked in the forms of task in a lot of these systems. So when someone's resolving incidents, someone else might be resolving task. And so those do need to be tracked independently. And one service desk could be doing both. So these types of reports will show the amount of closed tasks and incidents resolved by departments or individuals. And I mentioned that they are different and need to be tracked. And typically, we find it's best to track these over weeks and months, years, so that you can look for potential forecasting and visibility into your environment. I'll show you. I think I have an example here of. Cancel. In this case, this is just incidents resolved. And I know it's very messy, but what you're looking for are anomalies and things that stick out. Everybody's kind of running together here. These are individuals. Bear in mind, I took names out, but each line is an individual. So you have to step back and look at. When you run your report, you may see something different, but the things that come to my eye in this particular report is, why do we have this top performer? He is far above everybody else. Well, after further investigation, this particular individual is assigned to only password resets. So he's getting the majority of incidents coming in and are basically resolving them on the fly and shows as a top performer. So these are the types of things that you can look. And then when you might want to explode this report and drill down and look at your low performers. Why is this particular user so low? And it can help you look for areas of improvement. Again, here's another report, and bear in mind, this particular customer just implemented the service requests in February. So it goes from 0 to higher numbers in March because they were using incident management and then just chose to implement service requests. So that's why we have the jump from February to March. But in this case, we're looking at individuals that are closing tasks, which are typically found in a service request. I need something, which typically require approval and escalation through management. In this particular case, this top performer, again, somebody different. Why are they doing so many tasks? Well, it turns out the purchase request process requires multiple tasks per request that takes it through the life cycle of a purchase. Well, as you close tasks, this shows up on your report. So this user is doing nothing but purchasing, and is why you see this person so high. And then you have to ask questions why everyone else is kind of running a little lower. This just helps identify areas of improvement. Another good report is the business durations for incidents, change, service request. All of these, how long are they open? And it's good to understand. I know that not everybody builds their SLAs immediately. Typically, the way you do it is you try to understand, what is the baseline, for companies, and then you build your SLAs around that and how you want it to improve certain things. So a lot of companies will typically like to show, their tickets closed within certain date ranges, which can come into for particularly areas, topics like password resets. And really, what this does is just, it shows your how long your tickets are really open, and you need to track them independently. And every company is going to be different. One company might have tickets open for a long period of time, and other companies close them out fairly quickly. It just depends on the type of requests that are coming in and the effort to do it, and that if they have to get escalated and moved through different layers of the IT. So in this case, we have an example of a company where the majority of their tickets are closed the same day. And in this case, from the next highest one is 2 to 5 days, and the next one to that is what looks like 2 days. Well, this kind of gives you a baseline, and we want to track is, all right, how is this changing over time, or what can we do to decrease this duration and provide a better quality of service to our customers. Another topic which is not necessarily tracked often is reopen. Like how many times a ticket or an incident is reopened, and what what you want to look at is really, is there a gap that's growing between these two particular times? Are tickets getting opened more and more often? And if they are, maybe this can help. Maybe this is there's a reason to implement more training. In this case, again, ignore May because the report was done at the beginning of May. Tickets, this particular customer had a high number of tickets that aren't reopened. What might be a better report to look at would be to drill down into the 1s, 2s, and 3s and try to understand, is this changing a lot? Is this a flat line, or what is the slope of this line? Is it what is the percent change of over time of tickets getting reopened? And if you see this moving, maybe there's a good chance that you could implement some training to help keep that from happening. But it's a good idea to track how many times your tickets are getting opened or reopened, should I say. Obviously, you want your tickets to have 0 reopens. And here's another very important one. I ask every company, what is your first call resolution? And not everybody can answer that. I feel it's very important to know when I call or when someone calls, over the number of tickets that are coming in, what percentage of those are getting taken care of during first contact. And you can track this by month. Everybody tracks it differently, but typically this is something you track over a period of time. Monthly is a good time to track it because it can allow you to see things changing in your environment. In this case, again, this customer implemented their solution fairly early in the year, and the majority of their calls are basically resolved. So in January, 88%. February was 92%. And again, every company is different. The key here is to understand your baseline and then track your baseline and push to increase that percentage. As you know, the cost of work at the lower levels of the service desk you want to drive down a lot of this work. And if you can train the lower levels of the service desk to solve all your problems, and then you're going to drive down the cost of IT. So having a high first call resolution means that you are taking care of everything on the front line, or your tickets are getting directed to the right person. All right, so this is a sticky report and can sometimes be misleading. So it's always prerequisite to this topic, and that when you are trying to monitor individual performance, that you are comparing individual performance based on departments or roles. So if you're comparing apples to apples, for example, here's a good example is when you're tracking created by, how many tickets is a particular individual creating? Well, not everybody creates tickets. Lower levels may be creating the tickets and then reassigning them, and they're getting completed by somebody else. So, if you were to compare a level 1 user report to a level 3, just be careful in that, that's not necessarily comparing apples to apples, because your service desk front line might be generating a lot of requests and not closing a lot of requests, but they could be. This depends on every company, but it's important to understand and compare individuals with each other, and then understand your top performers, and then maybe have your top performers train your new folks on the ways that they're resolving incidents. Here's an example again. When you're looking at this, each one of these lines is an individual, and what you look at is why is this yellow person so much higher than everybody else? And why all of a sudden do we have this other individual, I can't see the color, but it looks like it's green, go from February to May and become the top performer in May? Well, and again, that's this particular report is assigned to how many times is this particular user gotten a ticket assigned to them, and it counts it in volumes. So you want to drill down and understand what makes this report valuable, and what you're really tracking is change over time. What if you see somebody dip and jump, maybe they need to be moved from Department A to Department B, or maybe they're just not performing at top level and need some help. Another example is created by, I used this example earlier where, the service desk is generating a lot of frontline created by, and, everyone else might not be creating as much. So you need to make sure this particular report is actually comparing all levels of the service desk, and, you just got to make sure that why is someone not creating as many tickets as the other, and comparing apples to apples. But in this case, we have a great top performer here that's generating a lot of requests. Another good question is what defines a healthy environment, and there's a report in ways you can do that. It helps us basically determine if we are solving as many tickets, based on a week, monthly, over time, and versus what's coming in. And in a healthy service desk, you want the number of new tickets that are being created typically to be a parallel line to the number of tickets that are being resolved. And I don't have a good report to show you on this one, but just picture the similar graphs as before, and you have lines of the number in versus the number closed. And what typically shows a healthy environment is there's there's not a lot of gap between the two lines, but what you're really looking at is the change in gap. Is this gap growing or getting smaller? But in this case, if those lines are parallel, that typically tells a management that, yes, we are keeping up with the volume. And again, I don't have a graph for this, but kind of building on that same previous topic of, what defines a healthy environment, where you have two parallel lines or two lines of in versus closed. What is your backlog? Well, one way you can track your backlog is basically measuring the distance between those two lines, in versus out, and in reality, that's your backlog. How long does it take for those tickets to get closed? If that gap is growing, that means between open and closed, then your backlog is growing, and typically shows that you're not keeping up with the volume, and maybe you need to either get help or find ways to get those closed. If you see that gap closing between the number being created versus the number being closed, maybe that's an indication that the service desk is keeping up with the volume, and that could potentially free up bandwidth of employees that could be used elsewhere. One, or two, maybe you're trying to save money and there's a potential area where you could save in staffing cost. And of course, last but not least, this is a lot of customers don't like to do this because they don't necessarily want to know what they're doing wrong, but this is a very valuable report that you can get from your customers. And again, also take into consideration, people are only going to really tell you their bad experiences. So when you're doing your surveys, it's very unlikely you're going to get a lot of positive surveys because people that are mad are going to fill them out. So what you really want to do is you want to track these over time. How happy is your customer? Use these as escalation points for the ones that are really bad. Make sure these get assigned to somebody to go get resolved. And again, a lot of ITSMs have these built into them and can be used when you close a ticket, and it can be assigned out. Some customers like to do it for every single ticket. Some people do it every 10 tickets. But the goal is to implement some type of customer satisfaction. And then for some of those older systems that may not have one built, there are third-party solutions out there that will do this for us, like SurveyMonkeys, and they will provide you with a link and a URL that you can put into your emails that when you close the ticket, it gets sent to the customer, and they'll provide you with the reports back, and therefore you can track and understand the perception of what customers has the perception of your IT, and your goal is to increase that perception, and these can help. And let's see here, moving to the next slide. So that's pretty much the top 10 metrics found that are pretty important to measure the success of a service desk. We talked about obviously the easy ones, new tickets. We talked about types of, tracking your methods is very important. We talked about, incidents resolved versus tasks that are closed for request, service request. Tracking those is a very good measurement. Obviously, the duration of your tickets being opened is a good thing to track. And, understanding, how many times your tickets are being reopened helps you understand whether or not you need training on your service desk. First call resolution basically tells you, are you resolving most of your problems at the entry level points of your service desk to save money and drive down the cost of IT? And of course, individual performance of tracking the volumes of your service desk representatives, or those who are processing tickets and requests. And then what determines a healthy environment, and how you take that healthy environment report and understand your backlog. And then of course, understanding how the perception of IT by using customer satisfactions. And at this point, I think we've come to a conclusion, and we can open up the floor for any questions one might have. I believe questions come in as text. Let's see. We'll wait a minute to see if any questions come in. Well, at this point, I don't see any questions. So I would like to go ahead and conclude this presentation 3 minutes early. I want to thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And this recording, this is also being recorded for future reference too. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.